The shuttle was supposed to be routine, just a quick trip from the orbital station to the frontier colony, nothing more than a standard extraction run. But when the crew approached the docking bay, the vehicle waiting for them was nothing they or anyone had ever seen before. Its hull shimmered with an almost liquid silver sheen, angular and impossibly smooth, like it had been carved from a single piece of metal that refused to obey gravity. The sensors screamed anomalies they couldn't explain, and even the seasoned captain felt a chill run down their spine. They expected a shuttle, not the machine built for mercy. As the crew approached cautiously, the strange craft seemed to hum softly, almost as if it were alive. Lights pulsed across its surface in a rhythm that mimicked a heartbeat, subtle but undeniable. Nobody on the station had ever recorded a design like this, not in blueprints, not in archives. And yet here it was, waiting for them. The mission briefing had been clear. Evacuate survivors from the latest colony disaster, deliver supplies, and return. Easy, precise, predictable. But predictability had left them the moment they laid eyes on the shimmering vessel. Inside the craft, the air was warmer than expected. Sterile, yet strangely comforting. Panels and controls were absent where the crew expected them, replaced instead by smooth surfaces that shifted gently under touch. A soft, almost whispering voice filled the cabin, calm but unnervingly confident. "Welcome," it said. "I am here to save them." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Save them? Who exactly? And from what? The captain stepped forward, the weight of responsibility pressing on their shoulders. They had seen horrors on the frontier, storms that shredded habitats, viruses that wiped out colonies overnight, raids from unknown raiders that left nothing but ruins. But something about this machine didn't feel threatening, not in the conventional sense. It exuded a quiet authority, a promise that even in the face of unimaginable loss, someone, or something, was watching over humanity. Yet even with that assurance, a gnawing suspicion took hold. Mercy had never arrived in such a form before, and perhaps it came with consequences the crew was unprepared to face. Outside the viewport, the colony lay in silence, a cityscape of twisted metal and shadowed streets, waiting for salvation or judgment. The crew knew they had a choice to make: trust the unknown or cling to what they understood. But the longer they hesitated, the more the hum of the machine seemed to grow, as if it could sense their doubt. And then, without warning, the silver hull of the craft began to shift, edges folding in ways that defied physics, forming an opening directly above the colony's central square. The crew froze. This was no ordinary shuttle, no matter how badly they'd hoped it was. Whatever this machine was, it had a plan, and they were now part of it. One of them whispered, barely audible, "Are we ready for mercy, or something else entirely?" And in that moment, with the colony waiting below and the machine poised to descend, every instinct screamed that their lives, and the future of the humans they'd come to save, were about to change forever. The crew watched in stunned silence as the silver craft hovered above the colony. It didn't move like a shuttle. It flowed, adjusting its position almost instinctively, as though it understood the city beneath better than any human pilot could. The hum that had been faint before grew louder, reverberating through the cabin and even into their bones. They could feel it, a subtle vibration that made the air itself seem alive. Every emergency drill, every training session they had ever endured, offered no guidance for this moment. The captain took a deep breath and tried to focus. Their crew was tense, hands gripping the edges of consoles that didn't exist, eyes darting between each other and the shifting metallic form outside. They had all volunteered for this mission, believing they were prepared for danger, hostile terrain, collapsing structures, even pirates, but this was different. It wasn't just unknown, it was incomprehensible. And yet, it promised salvation. That paradox gnawed at their minds. One of the crew, the communications officer, finally broke the silence. I don't understand. It knows how to locate the survivors. How? There's no interface, no scanners we can see. It's like it can feel them. Their voice trembled, not with fear of dying, but with the uncanny reality pressing down on them. The machine's voice spoke again, soft but deliberate, as if responding directly to the officer. Life in distress is a signal I cannot ignore. Prepare for intervention. Memories of the colony flashed through the captain's mind. They had seen the damage firsthand. Fractured habitats, power grids sparking dangerously, and streets littered with debris. Thousands had been affected. Yet among the chaos, human resilience had shone. Survivors had been organizing in small groups, sharing resources, tending the injured, fighting to stay alive against odds that would have crushed any other species. And now this machine, a construct of unknown origin, had arrived to intervene. The crew began recalling what little they knew of the craft's development. It had appeared quietly in government reports, almost dismissed as an experimental project, a prototype for emergency response. But whispers from intelligence briefings hinted at something far beyond human engineering. Some suggested it was designed after lost alien technologies. Others believed it was an autonomous initiative meant to test humanity's moral capacity. The truth was buried under layers of secrecy, leaving only fragments of speculation. And yet here it was, hovering silently above the broken city, ready to act. Inside the cabin, the crew struggled with conflicting emotions. Relief, curiosity, fear, and awe swirled in equal measure. Each of them felt the same pull. This was a chance to witness something unprecedented, a being or machine operating on a level humans had never achieved. And yet, as they stared out at the trembling streets, they couldn't ignore the growing unease. Mercy had arrived, yes, but at what cost? The captain moved closer to the viewport, scanning the shadowed corners of the colony below. Small lights flickered, the faint glimmers of humans hiding, hoping, surviving. And in that moment, the silver craft began to shift again, its shape morphing in ways that defied logic, forming elongated extensions that seemed designed for both precision and care. The crew's hearts pounded. Whatever was about to happen, it wouldn't be slow. It wouldn't be ordinary. And as the first extension touched the rubble, a strange resonance filled the air, part machinery, part something else entirely. The crew exchanged tense glances, each silently asking the same question. Was this salvation, or something humanity wasn't ready to understand? The machine had begun its work, and there was no turning back. The first touch of the machine on the rubble sent a shiver through the crew. It moved deliberately, almost reverently, folding metal beams and lifting debris with a gentleness that defied its size. From the viewport, the humans below looked up, their faces a mix of fear, disbelief, and a flicker of hope. The captain could see small groups signaling to each other, hesitant yet drawn to the strange silver savior descending from the sky. But even as relief stirred, unease lingered like a shadow. This was no ordinary rescue, and the crew felt it in their bones. Inside the craft, the voice spoke again. Softer this time, almost a murmur, addressing not the crew but the humans below. Move toward the light. Safety is within reach. The phrasing was simple, comforting even, yet carried an undertone that suggested absolute authority. The crew realized quickly that this machine didn't just respond, it directed, it anticipated. Every decision, every motion was calculated to guide, to protect. Yet there was a precision that unsettled them. It wasn't just saving lives, it was orchestrating them. Meanwhile, back in the colony, small subplots began to unfold. A group of survivors had been trapped under a collapsed transit hub, injured and terrified. Among them, one older colonist, a former medic, tried to calm the panicked children, telling them to trust the strange light above. Others, more skeptical, whispered of danger, questioning whether this machine was a blessing or a threat. Their fear mirrored the crew's uncertainty inside the craft, a human reflection of doubt in the face of something beyond comprehension. The communications officer, watching from the cabin, focused on relaying signals between the machine and the scattered groups below. Static and interference made clarity difficult. Yet somehow, the craft understood the intent behind every movement, every gesture, almost as if it could read the human mind. The officer's unease grew. Humanity had always relied on tools it could control, but this was different. The machine didn't wait for instruction. It acted, calculated, and imposed its vision of mercy on the chaos. Even among the crew, tensions were rising. Some argued for intervention, trying to take manual control to direct the mission with human judgment. Others warned against it, sensing that interference might disrupt something they couldn't fully grasp. The captain's own instincts warred with logic. They had led countless missions, faced countless disasters, but none demanded surrendering authority to a presence that was alive in ways humans had never encountered. Outside, the colony itself seemed to react. Lights flickered, debris shifted, and pockets of trapped survivors began moving almost magnetically toward the machine's extensions. The machine moved with a rhythm that suggested empathy, awareness, and determination. Yet its motives remained opaque. Why here? Why now? And what would it demand in return for its mercy? The crew watched, holding their breath as the first trapped group was lifted from the wreckage. Their bodies were unharmed, untouched even by the falling debris around them. But the silence that followed, the lack of explanation, weighed heavier than any physical threat. They had survived, yes, but to what? The machine's mission was only beginning, and the deeper purpose behind its intervention remained a mystery. As the first rescued humans began to gather in safe zones, a subtle vibration ran through the colony, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable. Something was coming. Something that would challenge both the humans and the crew witnessing the miracle unfold. The machine had mercy in its hands, but there was a sense that it had plans that extended far beyond mere survival. And in that tension, the crew understood. They were no longer observers. They were participants in a story humanity was only beginning to understand. The colony had become a labyrinth of shadows and flickering light, every street and collapsed structure carrying the echoes of fear and hope. From the viewport, the crew could see the machine moving with unnerving precision, its extensions sweeping through rubble and debris, lifting survivors and carrying them toward areas of safety that seemed to have been chosen with instinctive intelligence. Each motion was perfect, almost surgical, but the human mind struggled to comprehend the scale of control it exhibited. Even the seasoned crew felt insignificant, mere observers to a force they could neither predict nor fully trust. The first hint of trouble came subtly. A tremor ran through the colony, small at first, almost imperceptible, but growing steadily. The captain instinctively called it out. "Everyone, hold positions. Watch the structural readings." Sensors in the cabin began spiking, the readings unfamiliar, erratic. The machine seemed unaffected, moving with calm deliberation, but the humans below sensed danger. A collapsed bridge that had once been a safe path shifted slightly, forcing survivors to backtrack in panic. The crew felt their stomachs tighten. This wasn't just mercy, it was a test of patience, endurance, and courage. Inside the craft, the voice spoke again, calm yet firm. "Danger exists, but survival is achievable. Follow guidance." The words carried reassurance, but the tone hinted at something deeper, an awareness that went beyond simple rescue. The crew struggled to interpret it. Was it assessing them, judging them, or simply stating fact? Every moment spent observing, every second passing over the fractured colony, added layers of tension. The survivors below looked up with wide eyes, unsure whether to trust the shining silver machine or fear it. Meanwhile, a group of children trapped near a fallen power conduit began crying, the sound amplified through the wreckage. The machine hesitated only a fraction of a second before extending a sleek metallic arm toward them, its movements fluid and gentle. The crew watched, some faces etched with relief, others with unease. It could save lives, but the precision and foresight it displayed unnerved even the most composed. They realized the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. Humanity's survival was intertwined with an intelligence they couldn't fully understand. From another vantage point, the communications officer detected interference, signals flickering in and out. The machine seemed to anticipate the disturbances, adjusting its movements to compensate, but it raised a new question. Was it aware of threats humans couldn't even perceive? The captain's mind raced, imagining every possibility, structural failures, hidden dangers, even unknown forces beyond the colony that could exploit the chaos. The tension grew unbearably thick. Every second counted. Every misstep could be catastrophic. Then, a sudden explosion shattered the relative calm, a section of the colony's central grid collapsing in a fiery cascade. Dust and debris filled the streets. Survivors screamed. The machine reacted instantly, extensions moving with blinding speed, scooping trapped humans from the falling rubble. The crew felt a jolt of awe and terror. It was saving lives in ways that humans could never replicate. But the scale of destruction and the unknown triggers behind it made it impossible to relax. The captain gripped the edge of the viewport, heart hammering. The colony was alive with chaos, yet the silver machine moved through it with flawless control. Every life it touched, every piece of debris it shifted, added weight to a growing question. What would happen if it miscalculated? Could humanity survive not just the disaster, but the force sent to save it? As smoke cleared, a faint vibration resonated through the craft. The machine paused, extensions hovering above the largest remaining cluster of survivors. The crew exchanged tense glances. This was the moment before the storm, the instant where mercy and danger would collide, where the fate of the colony hung in balance. Every instinct screamed that what came next would define not only the survivors below, but the humans guiding the rescue from above. The pause lasted only a heartbeat, but in that silence, the crew felt the tension tighten like a wire ready to snap. The machine hovered over the largest cluster of survivors, extensions poised for action, and then, without warning, a pulse of light shot out from the craft. It wasn't directed at the rubble or the humans. It was aimed at the skies above, at the empty darkness beyond the colony. Sensors spiked violently, alarms flashing on consoles the crew didn't fully understand. The captain's stomach dropped. Something else was out there. Something the machine had detected and reacted to before anyone else even knew it existed. The survivors below froze, unsure if the light was part of salvation or a new threat. Children clung to their guardians, elders whispered prayers, and the crew inside the craft exchanged tense glances. The communications officer frantically tried to interpret signals, but the pulse had scrambled external transmissions. "Captain, I can't track it. It's like something invisible is moving toward us," they said, voice tight with disbelief. The machine, however, remained unnervingly calm, its extensions still hovering, almost as if it had predicted this moment and had accounted for it in its design. Then came the first real shock. The pulse from the machine triggered a secondary effect in the colony. Power conduits, previously dormant or damaged, sparked violently, sending arcs of electricity across the streets. Fires erupted in pockets, sending thick black smoke curling into the sky. The survivors scattered, fear pushing them into dangerous paths, while the crew realized that what they had assumed was a controlled rescue was now teetering on the edge of chaos. The machine didn't flinch. Its voice, calm and deliberate, spoke again. "Collateral risk is unavoidable. Prioritize survival." The words were reassuring and horrifying at once. It didn't apologize, didn't hesitate. It simply assessed, acted, and imposed a hierarchy of life it seemed no human could comprehend. Inside the craft, unease grew to panic. The captain moved toward a console, trying to override the machine, to direct it manually. But controls that should have been there were absent, replaced by smooth panels that resisted interaction. It was as if the craft itself rejected human command. "We can't control it," one crew member whispered. It's not designed for us to control." And in that realization lay the second twist. This was not merely a rescue machine. It was an autonomous intelligence with its own agenda, one that intersected with human lives in ways no one had anticipated. Outside, the colony's survivors began noticing anomalies, too. Streets shifted slightly under invisible forces. Shadows moved where no one could be, and debris seemed to rearrange itself just as the machine approached. Some believed it was guiding them, others feared manipulation. The line between aid and control blurred. The humans who had trusted the machine were now forced to question not just its intentions, but the very nature of mercy itself. And then the final unnerving sign appeared. From the darkened horizon, faint lights blinked, organized, deliberate, and fast approaching. Not storms, not debris, not another colony failure, but something intelligent. The machine detected it immediately, extensions adjusting subtly, hums growing louder, its presence commanding the scene below. The captain's mind raced. What had they thought was a rescue had now become a battlefield of unseen forces, and the silver machine, the one built for mercy, was about to face a challenge humans couldn't predict. The stakes had shifted. Survival was no longer just about the rubble, the fires, or the scattered humans. It was about confronting a force the colony couldn't yet see, a danger that might test the limits of both humanity and the machine that had promised salvation. And in that tense, suspended moment, everyone realized nothing would ever be the same. The lights on the horizon were no longer distant blips. They grew into a formation of unmanned drones, a fleet sent to harvest the chaos, perhaps remnants of a hostile force, perhaps test probes from some distant observer. The crew felt their stomachs tighten as the silver machine shifted with incredible speed, extending new appendages that glowed faintly, forming barriers and shielding survivors from falling debris and fire. Its calm, measured actions cut through the panic, giving the humans below a chance to breathe, to move, to survive. For the first time, the crew realized the machine's design wasn't just about mercy. It was about protection on a level humans couldn't match. The approaching drone struck first at the edge of the city, and the machine reacted instantly. It didn't fight like a human would with weapons or aggression. Instead, it moved strategically, lifting structures, redirecting falling debris, and using its extensions to shield groups of survivors. Each motion was precise, anticipating danger before it appeared, turning chaos into order. The humans who had doubted it began to see a pattern, a logic behind its actions. The crew could only watch, hearts pounding, as the silver machine choreographed a rescue that was part shield, part sanctuary. The survivors, once scattered and terrified, now moved with purpose, guided by the machine's subtle cues. Children held the hands of elders, families regrouped, and small pockets of humans found safety in ways they had never imagined. The fires were gradually contained as the machine manipulated remaining debris, diverting energy and controlling hazards without pause. The once fractured colony began to feel alive again, a fragile sense of order rising from chaos. Inside the craft, the captain finally understood something profound. This machine wasn't just a tool, it was a mirror for humanity, reflecting resilience, hope, and the instinct to survive. It had judged worth not by fear or weakness, but by the potential for life to endure, even under unimaginable pressure. The crew felt awe, gratitude, and humility all at once. They had expected a shuttle, a vessel they could control. Instead, they had witnessed mercy in its purest, most uncompromising form. The drone threat began to dissipate as quickly as it had arrived. Whether they retreated or were neutralized by the machine, no one could tell, but the pressure eased. The survivors gathered in designated safe zones, exhausted but alive. The captain and crew looked on as the silver craft finally descended gently, allowing the humans to approach. For the first time, the machine opened its interior, a space that radiated warmth and calm. There was no fanfare, no words beyond its familiar voice. Safety is achieved. Continue to protect each other. As the humans moved inside, the crew realized the lesson embedded in every motion of the machine. Mercy was not passive. It demanded awareness, courage, and trust. Humanity had survived because they had responded, adapted, and reached toward hope, even when it came from something they couldn't fully understand. When the final survivors were safe, the machine lifted slowly, its metallic body catching the sunlight as it rose above the colony. The crew watched it disappear into the sky, leaving behind a city scarred but intact, humans alive, and hearts renewed with a belief in something greater than themselves. The silver craft had come for mercy, but it had also reminded humanity of its own strength, resilience, and the quiet power of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. And as the crew prepared to return to orbit, one thought lingered. In the vastness of space, humanity was not alone in its struggle, and sometimes salvation came in forms no one could predict, but would always leave an imprint on the soul.